This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. As you've been hearing here on CBC Winnipeg News, the Children's Hospital Emergency Department has been seeing a spike in the number of influenza cases. Take a look at these new numbers from the province. It says roughly 40% of influenza cases and hospitalizations are among those who are under the age of 18. And while there has been a growing call for kids to be vaccinated against the flu, the latest numbers show the number of kids being immunized remains low. The CBC's Alana Cole reports.
For pediatrician Dr. William Lee, the influenza vaccine is a shot toward protecting kids and relieving pressure at the Winnipeg Children's Hospital.
I think it's important for us to get out there and make sure that we're making the public aware that we are seeing flu and we're seeing severe outcomes of flu as well. And the best way, and one of the best ways to protect our kids is to get the flu vaccine.
The Children's Emergency Department says it's seen 3 times the number of influenza cases they normally do this time of year. Influenza is among the viruses that's led to a surge in patients. But the most recent numbers show only 8.7% of Manitoba children aged 4 and under have had a flu shot. For kids aged 5 to 17, that number is about 8.5%. Lee says he's seen slower uptake at his practice.
I think part of it is because we've been focused so much on COVID, and rightfully so, for the last couple of years, and we haven't seen much in terms of influenza. So I think a lot of it is sort of put to the back of your mind.
The province says its annual flu shot campaign runs until early December. Still, some health experts say more can be done to increase uptake. This physician says he'd like to see more messaging from the province around why it's important to get vaccinated, since there can be a perception the flu isn't serious.
Can knock out kids and young adolescents just like it can knock out older people for days with high fever and cough, missing school, and 3 or 4 days of a fever over 40 is enough to make any parent sick to their stomach. It's not a mild illness. It's not a cold. And I think that messaging needs to go out.
Flu shots are available at clinics and pharmacies, but bringing the vaccine to where people are, like malls, apartment buildings, or workplaces, makes it easier for people, says this professor.
The University of Manitoba, for example, there's different flu vaccine clinics that are offered to faculty, staff, and students. I always try to attend one of those because it's really easy, to make that time to get there to access the vaccine.
At Lee's clinic, he offers the flu shot at every appointment and recommends all eligible kids 6 months and up get it. Alana Cole, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, this is being called an investment in transforming healthcare in Manitoba's north. Indigenous Services Canada announced $23 million in funding over 2 years today for Manitoba, Keewatin, Okimakanak. The money will go to reworking healthcare for Northern First Nations. The goal is to create new models of healthcare delivery and transfer that responsibility from the federal government to a Northern Manitoba First Nations-led healthcare organization. MKO Grand Chief Garrison Settee says the goal is to design a new system that'll work better for Northern communities, blending Western medicine with Indigenous traditional knowledge, values, and ceremonies.
We are on the verge of that transformation, and it begins with our people being involved, our leadership being involved in that transformation. That has been the missing piece in health transformation in our north.
The federal government will also provide $715,000 over the next 3 years to help MKO communities create their own laws and improve community safety. A Christian charity has been under scrutiny over allegations of discrimination against LGBTQ people at its skate park. Now, some civil liberty groups are saying governments should think carefully about how they fund such organizations. I spoke with the CBC's Rachel Bergen about this earlier today. Rachel, what are some of these allegations?
This week, a group of skateboarders raised concerns about the hiring and volunteer policies at Youth for Christ Winnipeg. CBC News obtained documents that suggest staff and volunteers are asked to agree with the evangelical group's statement of faith. That includes the belief that a marriage is, quote, a committed union between one man and one woman. An LGBTQ person settled a human rights complaint over this policy with Youth for Christ Winnipeg just last month. Youth for Christ Winnipeg says all youth, regardless of their sexuality, are welcome in the space, but not everyone feels that way.
Saying all are welcome is just empty words if materially you don't have the policies and resources in place to ensure that marginalized communities are actually safe in your space.
Where does this organization get its money, Rachel?
Well, primarily through donors, but it also gets money from all levels of government. The city has given money through its Arm's Length Development Corporation to build the downtown facility. The province has also given them grants. The federal government helped pay capital costs for the building. It also gave hundreds of thousands of dollars over the last 5 years through summer job grants. That's drawn some criticism from civil liberties groups. They say governments have a duty to investigate organizations receiving public funding if accused of breaking human rights law.
Our government is absolutely entitled to peg funding to a requirement of non-discrimination in employment. If that requirement isn't being followed, then certainly the government should be in a position and should be investigating.
So what do these government representatives from the different levels have to say about the discrimination allegations?
Well, the federal government actually has a policy in place to protect workers from potential discrimination. It wouldn't speak directly to this case, but says whenever allegations are brought forward, they will investigate and reserve the right to revoke funding. The province wouldn't commit to explicitly prohibiting discrimination on the grant applications, and the city says all its funding goes through its Arm's Length Development Corporation Centre venture.
So what do the skateboarders have to say about this?
Well, Maddie Nowasow just wants to see some accountability.
But that marginalized folks had to be hurt in the process, and it had to be us finding out when the government should be responsible for, you know, where the funding is going and what's happening in those places.
It's not clear whether Youth for Christ could lose federal funding promised for this year, or if it is only investigating future applications. The province says it'll look into the concerns. Janet?
Thank you so much, Rachel. Rachel Bergen reporting from the newsroom. RCMP are reminding Manitobans to keep all cannabis products, especially edibles, in a locked container far away from kids. 3 children in Shiloh, aged 5 to 9 years old, ate gummies on the school bus, candies that turned out to be cannabis gummies. They all got sick and had to be taken to the hospital, one of them by ambulance. The Souris RCMP is investigating. The city of Winnipeg is projecting a $57 million deficit at the end of the calendar year. That's $3 million worse than the last projection made earlier this fall. Heavy snow clearing demands are the main reason for that projected shortfall. A $57 million shortfall would put the city almost 5% over its $1.2 billion budget. The shortfall will be covered by a transfer from a city financial reserve.
There's no doubt that the impacts of the pandemic continue to impact the city of Winnipeg's finances. And, you know, last year was one of the snowiest winters on record and therefore one of the most expensive winters on record.
The final deficit for this year will be tallied in February. The city says it plans to tow more vehicles parked on designated streets overnight. Winnipeg's winter route parking ban goes into effect at 2 a.m. tomorrow. Here's CBC's Cameron McLean on the city's stricter policy on snow routes.
There might not be much snow on the ground right now, but people who leave their vehicles parked on designated streets overnight could wake up to find they've been towed. The city says it's stepping up enforcement of its towing policy. Public Works Committee Chair Janice Luke says in the past, the city often didn't tow vehicles that broke the parking ban.
And that came to light last winter when we saw cars with 10 feet of snow on them on these routes that clearly that had been sitting there for a long time and hadn't been towed.
Now the city says it will tow vehicles at any time while the parking ban is in effect, not only when there is snow on the road like it did in the past.
The reason for the ban, beside assisting in an effective snow clearing, it's really crucial for vehicles not to be on those roads, for us to be able to provide ice control measures and activities on it, like salting and sanding.
While the city says it needs to tow vehicles in order to be able to properly plow the streets, some residents say they're not happy about the idea of stricter enforcement.
I think it's crazy. They need to start leaving notes or like just maybe tow it to the next block. They tow it everywhere, don't even know where. And then when you call the places, they don't even know what your vehicle is. And if you don't know the license plate...
I just don't know where they expect us to park.
Yeah.
If there's no parking, I mean, especially like I was saying, single moms with young kids, you know, you don't want to walk like 6 blocks to get home.
Drivers who violate the ban could also get a $100 ticket. The parking ban will stay in effect until the city declares an end to the snow season. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Winnipeggers gathered downtown last night for a vigil to remember victims of last weekend's fatal shootings at an LGBTQ+ nightclub in Colorado. They met outside Club 200, which is one of the longest-running gay bars in Canada. The list of charges against the suspect accused of killing 5 people in Club Q in Colorado includes hate crime charges. Organizers from the local Rainbow Resource Center say it's important the LGBTQ2 community here has a chance to come together and grieve.
It's incredibly scary. It makes everybody think twice. We want to believe that every space is safe and inclusive, but that is not the case. This is a reminder that we have to remain vigilant and that we have to continue to not be complacent.
Members of the Fox Lake Cree Nation in northern Manitoba say they have been waiting more than 75 years for Canada to hand over land it owes the community. CBC's Andrew Wild shows us how that delay impacts people in Fox Lake.
It's not just water. For the Cree living along the Nelson River, it's the lifeblood of their traditional territory. About 250 kilometers from Thompson, Manitoba, is the Fox Lake Cree Nation. A proud and resilient community who were fishing here long before industry moved in. But this river is also a source of immense power. Dams here send electricity to the south. But to build them, Fox Lake's chief, Maurice Beardy, says the government took the land by the river, which belonged to his people.
Reconciliation is our land, getting our land back. Reconciliation means so much to us. As you know, we've been here since the time immemorial, and we're not going anywhere. We're going to be here for time immemorial for generations to come.
Their struggle is captured here, side by side, in these 2 signs, saying, "Welcome to the same place." Canada owes Fox Lake more than 26,000 acres of land under a treaty signed in 1910. The First Nation says 75 years ago, the government promised them reserve land in and around Gillam. But the land was turned over to Manitoba Hydro instead, and Gillam was flooded with strange men.
Our young women and our men having to basically fight off contractors. They either got beat up, they got raped. And that's when the bad stuff happened in Fox Lake, was probably in the mid-60s when they built Kettle Dam.
Conway Arthurson says his people were called squatters, but they refused to give up their land.
My uncle, my other uncle, my grandmother, my cousin.
Manitoba Hydro and the town of Gillam acknowledged the wrongs they caused and settled with Fox Lake in 2004. This monument lists the names of the community members who didn't see it happen.
I always get emotional when I come to this sign because it shows our people that we're here.
Hydro says it's working with Fox Lake however it can to help them get land. The town has allowed Fox Lake to set up a gaming center there. But Gillam's mayor, Dwayne Foreman, says the thing Fox Lake is most interested in, land, is outside his power.
It's larger than Gillam. It's larger than Fox Lake. This is all of Canada that was affected by this, and this is something that our federal government needs to sit down and discuss at a serious table.
The federal government says it's working to settle with Fox Lake as quickly as possible, but an agreement may take years to negotiate, and then securing the land may take even longer. It may be too late for many of Fox Lake's elders who have already been waiting generations for justice.
You know, time is of the essence because a lot of our elders are dying off that were around back then, and we want some of them to experience, you know, the life that they should have had. Some of these negotiations take, 50, 60 years, and we don't have that kind of time.
As Fox Lake continues to wait, they remain resolute. But they say if Canada is serious about reconciliation, it won't force them to wait another 75 years. Andrew Wiles, CBC News, Gillam.
We are now 1 month away from Christmas. That may get some of us stressed out. Luckily, Santa's little helpers at Lights of the North Winnipeg are in town now doing their best to bring smiles back to people's faces, especially the faces of the young. CBC's Emily Brass joins us now live from Garden City. Hi, Emily. Tell us more about where you are.
Yeah, so I'm at Lights of the North Winnipeg. You can see how bright and cheerful this corner of Garden City Shopping Center is right now. There are lots of families here, little kids running around, playing in the lights, talking to Santa, families getting that perfect holiday portrait. And joining us right now is the chief elf, the event manager, Thérèse Desrosiers. Tell us what we're seeing here.
Well, here we are at the Lights of the North, where we have 500,000 lights set up so that we have all different kinds of vistas around. We even have a beach. So for those of you who want to get away someplace warm, we have a beach set up for you, all lit up.
And it is absolutely beautiful, but it's also for a good cause, right?
It is for a good cause. We are taking donations for the Children's Hospital Foundation of Manitoba, and as a thank you for your donation, we are offering a light bulb, a signature light bulb that is our Lights of the North signature, or a book if you would prefer having a book. We have a book of a past event of the Lights of the North.
And it is quite beautiful, and you can use that for any kind of festive drink, I might add.
With a little slushy in it, which is quite nice.
Yes, and so also you are doing other things to make the season more jolly for youth. Tell us about that.
We are inviting youth groups to come for the youth group coordinators or leaders can contact us and find out about our programs that we're offering to get the youth groups in here. We're offering special pricing and special programs for the youths.
Okay, great. And also tell us a bit about your staff. They're pretty unique as well.
We have done our utmost. We have hired only local. So we have some of our staff are doing their very first job ever. We're so pleased to be able to help them into that professional world and to give them a little bit of something to bulk out their CV.
And so obviously there's a big focus here on children and youth. What are you hoping, kids take away from this event?
Well, for some of these kids, Christmas is a new deal. It's new for some of the people that are living in this community. So we're trying to show them a little bit of what Canadian Christmas is like, what Canadian winter is like. It's not all about bitter cold. There's a lot of beauty and a lot of light and a lot of, where we are, warm indoor activity.
Yes, that's a key thing, because in the past, I guess it's been outside.
We have had an event outside, and it's more popular inside.
So, great. Thank you so much, Thérèse.
Thank you so much for coming and visiting us, Emily.
So that is Chief Elf Thérèse Desrosiers, and the Lights of the North Winnipeg will be here at the Garden City Shopping Center until New Year's Eve. Janet?
Thank you, Emily. CBC's Emily Brass reporting live from Garden City Shopping Center. Weather specialist Riley Laychuk joins us now to deliver what else we need to get us all feeling Christmassy.
How about the white stuff? Very cliche, but there we go. Yeah, we are looking at some accumulating snow across southern Manitoba. Parts of the north looking at some more snow as well on the back half of the weekend. Can't really see it on satellite radar right now, but we can take a look. We've really been under this mix of sun and cloud today across most of Manitoba. It was a lot breezier today than it was yesterday as well. Winds gusting up to 50, even higher in parts of southern Manitoba. Earlier in the afternoon, you can see still some clear, just a little bit of high weather cloud in southern Manitoba right now. A little bit more cloud cover out to the west of us right now. This ahead of a system, a low pressure system from Alberta that will deliver some snow to us the later part of the weekend, and we can show you that right now. Getting into Saturday morning, I did put a stop in here first thing in the morning. You see this little blip of precipitation here. I did put a chance of flurries into the forecast for tomorrow morning for the Red River Valley and east toward the Whiteshell, but it really depends on temperatures. We'll be right on that freezing mark, so it could be falling as a rain shower or a snow flurry if this does give us some precipitation early in the morning. The rest of the day looking pretty pleasant, a mix of sun and cloud. Temperatures really across southern Manitoba around the freezing mark once again tomorrow. The winds will be a bit gusty again tomorrow out of the northwest up to 40. We'll talk about that in a second. And as I move out of the way here, you can see that low pressure system beginning to move in Sunday. As we get into the early part of Monday morning, our winds shift around out of the south, even out of the southwest or southeast in parts of extreme southeastern Manitoba. By the time we get into early Monday morning, we're into the snow already through parts of central Manitoba. I think we will see some flurries start in the later part of Sunday night through the Sunday overnight into Monday for the Red River Valley. But certainly this area here from Flin Flon down to around Roblin, Russell, Dauphin, going to pick up some snow, some significant snow through the early part of Monday morning through the later part of Sunday as well. In terms of accumulations, not much to see until we get into Monday morning. You can see, as I mentioned, that bullseye right on this western edge of Manitoba here. I think Dauphin, we're missing a digit there. That should be probably around that 10 centimeter mark, 10, 15 centimeters along the western edge of Manitoba. As we get later into the day on Monday, I'm thinking about 5 centimeters for parts of southern Manitoba. For the northern part of the province, another 5 centimeters along the Hudson Bay coast out to northwestern Manitoba as well. The winds will be another thing to contend with as we get into the day on Friday, or on Saturday, I should say, out of the northwest again, gusting up to 40 through Brandon and Winnipeg, calming down, but then shifting around out of the south as we get into Sunday and Monday. +2 in Winnipeg right now. We did, that is as high as we got today, down to -1 with that chance of flurries tonight. Winds still gust to 40 this evening, waking up to a 1 degree temperature tomorrow morning with some sunny breaks. Another mainly sunny afternoon tomorrow. Winds out of the northwest gusting to 40 with a high of 3 degrees. So there's that snow I was talking about on Sunday, late into Monday. Periods of snow, -1 on Monday, tapering off to flurries on Tuesday. Then we see a cool down after this. I'll have more on that later in the show.
Weather Update is brought to you by Home Equip, your trusted local source for Pride Mobility scooters. From sales to rental and repair, our team is here to serve you.
As we head to break, a reminder to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That helps you stay up to date whenever is good for you. You'll get all the local news you need. And plus, you can scroll through our newscast, watch it whenever you like, see the stuff you want. As